doing? Hello, everybody. I wanted to start today's stream by talking a little bit about this past weekend. We're gonna go over the event results we had, obviously, which you can find in my YouTube channel right now. The full 9 rounds of the Modern Showcase Challenge, where I played this exact list that you see right here. Um, so after seeing the results and after seeing the metagame that we ended up seeing, I expected both Belcher and the Upsol spells deck to be very very popular because honestly I think that the Upsol spells deck is still kind of broken. Belcher just a little bit less so, but what Belcher has is it has a lot of flexibility in how it can be built. So it is it is like it feels like Belcher is a little bit less tuned, to call it somehow. I think the Upsal spells is pretty close to broken, and I think that people were, I don't know if they were a little bit too coward to not play it. Apparently, and this is something that, in case you didn't know, the event was won by Doomwake on Red Black Shadow, and what he was saying is that he thought that both the Upsal spells matchup and the other matchup, the Belcher matchup, were pretty bad for the Shadow deck. So it's very interesting to see that it seems like nobody play the nobody play that deck for whatever reason, which I find very very surprising. But okay, so this is the list that I arrived at through my testing, and of course I arrived at this list expecting for the Upsal spells, the and the Belcher decks to be very popular. That's why we have Karn, and that's like the main reason why I think that Karn is so well positioned right now. It's mostly because of how good it is against this combo deck specifically. Karn being able to come down and go fund your Tormod script. Again, a concession to that matchup specifically. I think that Tormod script is very, very important in your Karn wish board right now. So Karn for 4 mana can come down and then immediately minus to get a Tormod script, which means that you cannot get comboed out by the Upsal spells deck. And of course, just naturally coming down and locking your Belcher opponent out of the game, while at the same time, and this is not a minor thing, providing both an answer to the Belcher deck's plan of locking you out with Blood Moons and stuff, because obviously Karn provides you with a win condition that really works well under Blood Moon, and also giving you an answer to their other cyber plan of the Collected Company Thassa's Oracle win condition, because we can access Grafdigger's Cage, and also answering the Empty the Warren's win condition because it gives us access to Engineering Explosives. So Karn is the absolute package against Belcher specifically, and it is a great way to not lose the game against the Upsal spells deck. And again, like the cyber plan for the Upsal spells deck is to cyborg into a Belcher deck. So Karn, again, it takes care of that. So Karn is insane against all the combo decks. So that's why I thought that Karn would be the answer for this weekend. Instead of doing this, I ended up getting paired. Again, you can watch the VODs on my YouTube channel. I ended up getting paired against all sorts of nonsense. A couple of blue soup decks. We got paired against Yama on Red Black Shadow. We got paired against a Heliod Company, which felt awful. Like that matchup honestly just feels like it's super super bad. Particularly with a list that, as you can see, has no removal spells. Because I was thinking of attacking my removal spell being good against the Shadow decks. Of course, I'm not playing any Dismembers or Lightning Bolts or whatever you want whatsoever, which means that it's going to be a lot tougher to answer a deck like Heliod combo. It's nice that Karn does stop the Ballista combo from happening, but you can still, like, your opponent can still gain infinite life thanks to Spike Feeder. So besides that, I ended up with a 6-3 record, which gave me a 33rd. Yeah, the worst, one slot away from getting twice the amount of PPs and 3 times the amount of chests. Very similar to what happened in GP Vegas, where I ended up like one slot away from doubling. I think I ended up getting $200 in GP Vegas, and I was like one slot away from getting, I think, 250 or 300. I can't remember. But it's been a trend. It's been a trend lately, where I just end up in a situation where I usually my breakers leave me in the worst possible spot, which sucks. Besides that, the list was excellent. I think the second field was very important in the event, particularly against the blue soup decks. Of course, the mana base is pretty much. I don't know if written in stone, but like Bojugabog needs to be in the main deck. Cavern of Souls needs to be in the main deck. Vestige is the only card that it's a flex slot of sorts, if you might want to call that. But yeah, so you need a fetch line. I think that Battleman's probably is better. It really pains me to say it, but if you're trying to do all of these things, and since adding Turn Timber specifically, I feel like the mana base really needs to be as consistent as possible, and you need as many green sources as you can. So I think that if you're planning on playing Turn Timber in your amulet decks, you probably need to just be playing Howard Battlements, mostly because it allows you to play another green bounce land instead of forcing you to play Boros Garrison. So that's the only real requirement from Turn Timber Symbiosis being in your deck. Gracer wasn't necessarily better than Scout over the event. The reality of the situation is that the Lava Dart decks are kind of disappearing. But one thing that I have found is that unfortunately, Scout is not really that good against the control decks anymore, because all the control decks are splashing red for Renin 6. So your Scout is just bad. it is not very, very good. Even in the matchups where it really shines, it just doesn't really shine as bright anymore, because those decks, I don't know if they rely on Renin 6, but they become a lot more powerful when they have Renin 6 in play, at least. As far as the Cyber goes, I really enjoyed my Karn package. It's definitely a lot more artifacts that I'm used to running in this kind of decks in my Karn Wish sideboard. But the reason I was doing this is because I was siding out card a fair amount, but I was still bringing in the explosives. Like against the Shadow decks, for example, I was bringing in the explosives and the Wormcoil engine. So even as I was cutting cards, like the cards that I wanted to bring in were just randomly artifacts anyway. So it's not that I have like 9 artifacts in my sideboard because of Karn. It's more of a coincidence that I have access to all of this. But I really want to have access to the Tormoscrypt and the Grafdigger's Cage. The Pithing Needle was pretty useful against the Soup decks as well. Being able to like minus Karn, get value, get your Pithing Needle, and then like naming whatever Planeswalker they have into play, it does come up a fair amount. One thing that really sucks is that Omnath just kills Karn very, very easily. Like Omnath is just a really, really frustrating card to play against. I really hate that card. But yeah, so that's like a little bit of the debrief of my event specifically. Now let's go to the actual results of the event. This is Doomwake's list. Doomwake has been killing it lately, and he was testing this version of Shadow that has access to Wear Tear and Path to Exile. Path to Exile, according to him, is really good in the mirror matches, and Wear Tear is very good against the combo decks, because the combo decks against this deck, they rely on Leyline of Sanctity in order to stop the hand disruption. So being able to destroy the Leyline for a single white mana, and maybe even get a 2-for-1 if you get to destroy a Belcher or one of the artifact mana, can be very, very good. So it's that's like a very, very cool innovation that he came to, which is pretty awesome. But yeah, besides that, it's just Shadow, right? It's playing a bunch of mutagenic roads because it cannot play the Street Wraith. Look at Modern. I'm going to analyze Modern today, Wombo. I'm sorry about that, but I know that you did well. You did well in Legacy. You won with Rock Delver, right? I saw that on Twitter. So sweet, congratulations. But yeah, the other big card was Beaumont Courier, which looked very impressive in the matches that I saw. Like Bomad look really really good, particularly in the finals. Which drum roll? Hell yeah, green white reclaimer. Green white reclaimer made it all the way to the finals. This list was by Freyet, a Brazilian player, a member of my Discord. So congratulations to him. And he was playing some Reclaimer with like dry. It's basically like a little bit with the Archon of Emeria in the main deck and like Knight of Autumn, the Steve, Skyclave Operations. So this is a lot closer to. It's similar to the list that I'll be playing today. Yes. Um, this is similar to what I was testing not last week but the previous week, where I was trying out a version of green white reclaimer. It's basically Titan Vial but without the vials and with Path to Exiles in the main deck, and I think that this is where I want to be. No, Knucklepuck, this is what I'm explaining right now. I think that this is it's different the Dome Harvest list because it doesn't have any of the explorers and stuff like that. Dome's list was a lot more like the same with like what X Whale has been streaming and stuff. What they have been doing is they're working with more of a more traditional green white Titan list. What we have here is it's closer to Titan Vial, but switching the vials for the Path to Exiles. And I think that this is kind of where I want to be. The reason for that being that I think Path to Exile is just really, really important in the format right now. And you can do a lot of good stuff with Vial. I mean, if you've been following the stream, you know that I love me some Aether Vial. But unfortunately, I think that just Path to Exile is way too important right now, because of all the aggro decks that are dominating the format, particularly with the Rise of Shadow. And I'm going to discuss this a little bit more later when we actually get into the league. But yeah, you're gonna see that we have Shadow here. We have another Shadow deck here, basically a similar list, but without splashing white. And we have yet another Shadow deck here. So this was a really, really good weekend for this deck. And I think that rightfully so. I think this deck is probably the best deck in the format right now. It's like black. We had black red prowess being one of the best decks, and now it just gets to play Scourge of the Skyclaves instead of the other guy, which this card is pretty broken as well. Case Heroes says, it's prime time. Welcome back for the 16th month in a row, Case Heroes. Thank you for the continued support. The other one that we saw is this one right here, which was the deck that Doomwake beat in the quarterfinals, and it's just like straight up mono red with Obosh. So that's why we have like the Season Pyros and like all of this, just like straight up mono red. I think it's a very, very good deck. Probably another one of the top dogs in the format. And then we have another blue soup deck. All of these decks are kind of the same. This one splashes black, and the other one I think splashes white, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So this one plays Somnath, and the other one doesn't. But they are basically the same thing, just like our Promise, Field of the Dead, Uro control decks. Or I don't even know if they're control decks anymore. I think that they are. They're a little bit more mid-rangey than control, but I think that it's probably still correct to call these control decks. And the last one, which I thought was pretty surprising, is a Parrot with Mono White Taxes. Mono White Taxes, the Spider Space special with Skyclave Apparition. I've been singing praises for this card since it was spoiled. And I, from the beginning, thought this was going to be one of the most impactful cards in the set. And when we move over to the challenge results, you're gonna see even more so. But yeah, this deck is very, very cool, and I think that Skyclave Operation actually helps a lot. I feel like it's good for Titan decks, because overall I think that the Taxes decks are pretty good matchups for us. But definitely great to see a deck like this be playable again. We saw the same thing, which is really funny, when what's the name of who won an invitation with Death and Taxes. And the reason that he was saying that he won the Invitational with Death, Brian Koval. Brian Koval won the Invitational, SSG Invitational with Death and Taxes, and the reason why he said that he won, it's because um, it's because Death and Taxes is just naturally very very good against Death Shadow, and now we see Taxes rising back to the top because Shadow rises back to the top. So it's very cool to see like this kind of constant back and forth. So DNT back on the menu mostly because Shadow is probably the best deck in the format right now. So very very cool to see that interaction. And this is the biggest feel bats right here. Our own Big JC, brutal, ending up on 9th place. Particularly because I think that 4 X and 2s got into the top 8, but I think that his breakers, even though he started like 5-0 or 6-0 or something, so I was actually super surprised to see that he didn't make the cut for top 8. But yeah, he ended up in the brutal 9th place. Feels bad, man. But yeah, just like the classic straight up list with the full force symbiosis, which I am not against by any means. I think this is pretty great, pretty great deck to way to build a deck right now. And with the 9 bounce lands and all the good stuff, then we have the fountain in the sideboard, which JC loves, etc. And yeah, we see a lot more Shadow in the top 16. Like Shadow had a really good weekend. Shadow had a really good weekend, and everything else was kind of like Omnath decks and Uro decks of different shapes and sizes. And Spider Space 13 place, nice. Blue Red Delver, Blue Red Prowess. This is one that kind of has disappeared from the format, and rightfully so. I think it's just worse than the other versions. Dredge and Canister with humans. But yeah, it was a pretty interesting tournament. I was definitely surprised to not see any combo decks, but that's cool. Moving on to the challenge. I know, right? Isn't this weird? We had a Taxes on Taxes finals. Like that's just bizarre. That's just bizarre to me. Taxes on Taxes finals in 2020 in Modern. Crazy. But yeah, it's basically just a very similar deck, except this one is playing a couple of lures. I think this is something that Spider was experimented with at some point. Parrot, which is the same player that up-aided the other one, and then they doubled down and actually won the challenge on Sunday. Pretty dominant performance over the weekend. And yeah, and then we have some more Omnath decks. Spirits, which we actually faced. I actually faced in the Swiss in the other event, and I don't know. It felt maybe it's good against Shadow. It seems like it could be good against Shadow, having like a bunch of like evasive threats and like 4 Auric Champions in the sideboard. It's probably going to be pretty good against Shadow, but I don't know. It felt like a little bit underpowered when I faced it the other day, but who knows? Bomat Couriers. This is probably going to be the stock Shadow list for the foreseeable future. I would imagine this card honestly looked very impressive when Doomwake was playing it, and then some Tron, more Shadow. Shadow had an incredible weekend, and a Boomer Jund, the classic believer, trying to somehow sneaking into the top 8. Hell yeah. I lost him in Spirit in the Energy event, felt real bad. I mean, Spirits is not a... I mean, I think that Band seems a lot better against us because of Collected Company specifically. Collected Company and Noble Hierarch are like probably the most important cards in that matchup. So I'm not surprised to lose to Band Spirits, but I think that the blue-white version just seems worse. But yeah, that's just my thoughts. So yeah, lots of Shadow, as you can see. Lots of Shadow. Wow, that's new. Dreadhorde Butcher? Jeez. We're going deep, are we, huh? More Shadow. So in case you were thinking about which one is the deck to beat. All right, now we're gonna be talking about the NRG event, which also happened in this past weekend, and it was won by Mono White Stoneblade, aka Texas. Why would you call Death and Taxes Mono White Stoneblade? I have no idea, but somehow that is the name that we ended up with. Taxes, another deck that did really, really well over the weekend somehow. But yeah, I mean, I guess that Thalia is Thalia is good again. I think that the main reason why this deck is good is Skyclave Apparition and how Skyclave Apparition lines up against the shadow decks in the format, which as we saw are kind of taking over. We also have Marcus Thebo, I would imagine, with Green White Reclaimer. Green White Reclaimer, yes. Marcus, fellow member of the Modern Streamers League, and yeah, did pretty well with Green White Reclaimer, another one of the reasons why I'm going to be streaming it today. Very similar list to the other one. We have the VLC Disciple, which I personally don't like, but it seems like people are playing them for whatever reason. And this list, the thing that it has that's different than the one that took second in the showcase challenge is that it has Gaia's Blessing, which I like. I think that it's one sideboard slot that drastically changes a really bad matchup. So I think it's okay. I think that it's okay. Green White Titan is the future. I also think so. Bamsing. Yeah. By the way, Bamsing completely destroyed me on round number 8 of the event. So yeah, GG's Bamsing. But yeah, I mean, this deck, I think that it just has the correct tools to attack the top dogs of the format right now. But yeah, I mean, we're going to be playing it today for that very reason, right? So the rest of the top 8, Omnath deck, of course. Humans, White Red is... Oh yeah, this is a Hammer Time deck. Somehow a Hammer Time deck managed to sneak in there. Which is... Honestly, it's kind of hilarious and awesome at the same time. Hell yeah, Hammer Time. That's your buddy. He's a memer for sure. There you go. There you go. The meme actually got rewarded this weekend, which is hilarious. More Shadow, again, the deck of the weekend. Band Spirit and Gruul midrange in the top 8. This is a deck that has kind of disappeared. And I think that this deck just lines up pretty poorly against the Shadow decks, so that might be the reason why this is what's going on. What this deck kind of fell out of favor. I'm very surprised to see Glorybringer as a one-off, and honestly, I just don't know why people are cutting Elder Gargaroth from their Gruul decks. Like, honestly, all the time, regardless of which deck I'm playing, whenever I am faced against Gruul, they always get me in a position where I'm in a situation where, well, if they find Glorybringer, I'm going to lose, and if they don't, maybe we have a shot. And in those situations, even sometimes I'm in those situations and they just like tap 5 mana and I freak out. I'm about to hit the concede button and they play another Gargaroth and they give me one more draw step, and it's just like, I don't know, it just feels like you should be playing Glorybringers. The reason why this person is cutting Glorybringers obviously is because they're playing Karn, but I don't know, it feels like if you're playing Karn and like not playing explosives in the board seems kind of sus to me. Like, that's one of the main reasons to be playing Karn. I don't know. Maybe Ensnaring Bridge is good enough against Shadow. I feel like if I'm playing Karn in a Shadow metagame, I would definitely want to have access to explosives in the board, but what do I know anyway? Also, 3 Blood Moon seems... I don't know, like, the best thing you can do with this deck is turn 2 Blood Moon against a bunch of the formats, so I don't know why you would want to make that list likely. But anyway, Drake getting in the 10th place with Amulet, hell yeah. So I think, yeah, he's just playing a similar list to the one that Will was talking about. And this is something that I've been trying on stream, that I tried last week, and I was pretty impressed with. Main deck Relic actually does a lot of work in the current metagame right now. Relic is very good against all the Euro decks, like very very good against all the Euro decks, particularly game one. And I think also Relic is very very good against the combo decks as well, particularly of course the Oops all spells. So sometimes you can just go turn one Relic against Oops and they can't kill you game one as long as you hold up that one mana. So I mean, I was very very impressed by Relic of Progenitors whenever I run those leagues. But yeah, this is probably if I, which I'm gonna be doing this week, obviously. If I'm going to continue playing Amulet this week, I'm probably gonna be running some number of some list with Relic of Progenitors in the main deck, and also Explosives is probably gonna go back to being the one-off two-door target for the main deck because of the Rise and Shadow decks that we have seen, of course. So yeah, sweet. We had a ton of events this weekend, so very happy to see the Reclaimer decks and some Titan decks doing well, but definitely we're gonna need to watch out for the Shadow decks, which are probably gonna be the thing that we need to worry about most in the format. But yeah, well, this time for real, we're gonna move on to the matches. So we'll see you over there.